Yo, crew, Captain Jordan here. If you've ever had something unexplainable happen on the water, throw us a line at ghostboatadventures@gmail.com. Your stories keep this logbook alive. And if you'd like to help keep the ghost boat afloat, you can toss a coin in the treasure chest. Link below. Tonight's episode takes us into one of the most violent and unpredictable places on the entire Pacific Northwest coast, Seymour Narrows. A stretch of water so dangerous that Canada once detonated the world's largest non-nuclear explosion just to make it survivable. But even after the blast that destroyed RippleRock, Seymour Narrows still takes ships, and one of those ships was a seiner named the MissJoy, a vessel with a history, a reputation, and a pattern the sea seems to love: threes. Tonight we tell the story of the MissJoy's third and final capsize, and of the cook who survived where no one else did. Thanks to one of the most miraculous rescues in Canadian history, let's begin. The Narrows. Seymour Narrows does not pretend to be gentle. Even on a calm day, the tidal currents race like a river between mountains. Standing waves rise out of nowhere, eddies twist sideways beneath the hull, and whirlpools, some the size of small houses, can spin up without warning. My father told me that before RippleRock was destroyed, ships could be torn open like tin cans on its jagged peaks. But even after the explosion, everyone still respected the Narrows. You time your passage, you watch the water, you stay sharp, especially at night. The crew of the MissJoy entered the Narrows in darkness. A MissJoy was a 65-foot seiner with a long working life and a reputation whispered about on docks and in bunkhouses. Some boats just carry a shadow, something in their history or their construction or their luck makes fishermen wary. The MissJoy had already rolled over twice in her lifetime, twice salvaged, twice raised, twice returned to service. Now she was entering Seymour Narrows for the third time in her long story that the sea would test her stability. On board were a crew of fishermen and a female cook who would soon find herself in the most nightmarish situation imaginable: the capsizing. Nobody knows the exact moment it happened. There were no cameras, no radio call, no warning shouted over the wheelhouse speaker. What we do know is this: as the MissJoy passed through the Narrows, the tidal current had a violent pitch. Then came the whirlpool, a sudden unseen pull, a force that grabbed the seiner, tilted her, and within seconds rolled her completely upside down. Men were thrown. The galley exploded in chaos. Cold seawater blasted through the cabin as the world inverted. The cook was swept downward, dragged by the rushing water into the engine room, now an air pocket under a sinking hull. The sound of metal twisting, the darkness, the choking mix of oil and seawater, and the terrible realization that she was trapped underwater. While the MissJoy was being dragged through Seymour Narrows, completely upside down. There is no training for this, no preparation, only the raw instinct to survive and the horrifying awareness that there might be no way out. The vessel plunged and surged beneath the surface, swept by the powerful tidal force. Anything loose, rigging, netting, lines, metal, became deadly obstacles that could entangle a diver or trap a survivor forever. This should have been the end, but the sea wasn't done yet. The miracle in the engine room. In the pitch black of the engine room, with only a shrinking bubble of air above her head, the cook suddenly heard a disturbance in the water. A sound, unlike the roaring current. Something was entering the space beside her. Then, with a rush of bubbles and a burst of light, a diver surfaced right next to her. A Canadian Armed Forces rescue diver, fighting the current, navigating through the overturned seiner, weaving through nets and hanging rigging, risking his own life with every stroke. He emerged in front of her like an apparition, a figure out of the myth, descending into the dark to pull one soul out of the jaws of death. He pressed a spare respirator into her mouth, and she tasted air again, blessed life-saving air. Then he grabbed hold of her and pulled her out through the maze of machinery and debris, avoiding anything that could snag their lines or drag them back into the wreck. Together they rose through the black water, carried by the violent tidal flow. The surface broke open. Wind, waves, the roar of helicopter rotors. As a rescue crew positioned overhead, the diver signaled. The basket descended, and the cook, oil-soaked, freezing, terrified, was lifted into the night sky toward the waiting arms of the helicopter crew. She was the only survivor of the MissJoy. All others aboard were lost. After the sinking, the MissJoy was later raised again, repaired, reinforced, and eventually owned by a respectful relative in our nation. A good man, well known on the coast, and someone I admired deeply. Nothing serious ever happened to him while he operated the vessel, which is a blessing, considering the boat's long and turbulent history. But the story of the MissJoy's final role in Seymour Narrows remains one of the greatest rescues ever performed on the British Columbia coast, a testament to courage and to the razor-thin line between survival and tragedy on the sea. And as for the pattern, the MissJoy rolled twice before. This was the third. Sometimes, as they say, third time lucky. Though for everyone except the cook, luck had already run out. Crew, what's your thought? Does this one shiver your timbers? Have you ever heard of a rescue like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments and throw us a line at ghostboatadventures@gmail.com. If you've lived through something that belongs in the next log, if you'd like to help keep the ghost boat afloat, like the video, subscribe, and toss a coin in the treasure chest. Through tilt and wake, through fall and shout, Captain Jordan and his crew of ghosts over and out.